Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Monday that we have, and some new opportunities. Some new opportunities to get into right now. Some actual new opportunities. Hallelujah. I don't even know how to say it. Hallelujah. Look. It's a good day, man. It's a good day because Bitcoin's had a humongous, ginormous $300 move since we last spoke, and that's what we've been relegated to. Excitement in the lower term timeframes and the higher term timeframes actually abound right now. That's wanted to follow up on some very high term timeframe ideas and some low term timeframe ideas as well, as we are meeting our short term timeframe setups for those short term timeframe targets to the upside, of which it is time to prepare for the rest of this next week and probably the rest of this next month. Anyways, with that in mind, I think I forgot to wish you the best bets, the happy apps. So I'd never want to not do that because it's it's free to do and hopefully can at least help. And let's just jump right into it right now. All right, so let's start it off over here. I wanted to follow up on the 2-day time frame Jewel Light setup that we were looking at. I think it was last Thursday or Friday, and it was this: when the 2-day time frame Jewel Light goes below the 38 level, which is about this green bar right here. I'll actually put it up exactly 238, and then turns white on its first tick, confirmed. That is when the setup is initiated, and then we're looking for that light blue cyan color to confirm the follow through. And over the past 5 years, that particular setup has led to an average move of about 20%, just over 20%, as you can see right there, over the course of about almost 3 weeks. And this particular setup has had a strike rate of about 73.68%. 14 out of the 19 setups in that fashion did work out. Now, I should denote that a few of those setups actually did have some upside price action as well. Sorry, I should denote that some of the failures that I recorded here, or what I would record as a failure, did have some upside price action, but because it wasn't within the context of the overall data, these very, very small moves, I decided to include them as failures instead. Anyways, in this case, it does look like we are potentially in the process of setting up for another one of these, and in this case, we have seen that, well, the Jewel Light has turned white. That was confirmed. And then we've had what is this one? Yeah, this is one successful closure with the Jewel Light remaining in that light blue cyan color. So with that in mind, I do want to once again play around with numbers here, seeing as we can look at the average move and the first standard deviation, representing this range between about 14.5% all the way up to 25.5% about. Well, if we play around with the numbers, and we probably aim for the lower end of that, simply because what I did observe from this particular setup is that on the upside moves, well, it was usually on the lower end, to be fair. And what do we see? Well, 14.5% would put Bitcoin, well, back around about $19,000 bucks. 20%, the average would put Bitcoin just under $20,000 bucks, and 25% would put Bitcoin just under $21,000 bucks. So potentially what we could be looking at over the course of the next 3 weeks, heading into the end of January this month. And I think that is probably the most exciting thing in play here, especially seeing that the 2-day time frame does have a higher low in progress. Now, I would say that this higher low is not confirmed, however, until Bitcoin's closing on this time frame of about 17,300 to 17,500-ish region, which, it's pretty damn close to as of right now. Anyways, other than that, I wanted to also denote that there was, or where was my damn notes over here? Let me just pull them up really, really quickly. Apologies, this video is being done in the early morning hours, at least for myself. I want to get this one out as I have things to do today. And yes. So what is the next point? Well, the next point is that, some of those setups on the fail side did completely fail to the downside, by the way. So I want to be very directly clear with that. While I don't think that this is what's happening over here, we have seen that in the past. So do be aware of that. That would really only be relevant if Bitcoin were to come back down and close below about 16,500. Until then, upside is, well, I think statistically more likely, and the question is, where do we find the high of this next rally? Anyways, moving into the next time from the weekly, we can see that the weekly has also started to work on its first cyan color as well on the Jewel Light, which is another good signal. And Well, generally speaking, we kind of expect these things to be working together, and when we do see confluence between the two, it's going to add some, a higher likelihood of that hit rate. Anyways, moving on into a time frame that I almost never speak about, but there is something I think relatively interesting over here. That would be the 3-week time frame. We can see on the 3-week time frame, over the full history of Bitcoin, this is on the index here, there has been an interesting relationship on the 3-week Joule or Joule Light as well. They're one and the same for the purposes of this demonstration. And basically it is this. Anytime that we have seen, hey, let me go to, I don't have that chart up right now. All right, I will load up a new chart really quickly over here. And we will go over here. Yes, and we will go over here. And what we will be looking at is this. The Joule Light or Joule or regular Joule, as you can see, over the full history of Bitcoin has had two prior times, working on the third one right now, where we've seen the Joule turn white and then cyan, obviously, after that, in this critical zone. So what I'm talking about is this area. Let me see if I've already marked up this chart. No, I haven't. Good. Is this area right here. Boom. This area right here. Boom. And potentially at the end of this next closure, this area right here. Now, if you look in the charts, you can see that the prior two times were, basically macro lows. Was it exactly on the low? No. Was it a little bit after the official low? Yes. Did things hang around that official low for a little bit longer? Also yes. So in this case, we can see that we will, or the Joule Light will have a chance to do that on the next closure, which unfortunately doesn't come for another basically 2 weeks. As it's going to be around the end of the month. But that would be a good indication for the long term for a greater bounce off these lows. I still refrain from calling for macro lows at these particular levels here, but ultimately I do think that things are building up for a nice major bounce over the course of the first quarter of 2023, maybe even into the second quarter as well. Also on that topic is that we do have a nice trend line coming in from those last few lows, and technically speaking, this would be hidden bullish divergence, as price action would be making higher lows theoretically in this case, as this one's not technically in just yet, alongside lower lows on the oscillator. So, just another somewhat good sign, I would say, that kind of corroborates that story long term. We also even do see that on the 3-week RSI right here as well, although these things, being very high term timeframes, take a long time to play out. Anyways, moving on into the lower timeframes now, I wanted to talk about, or actually, before we get into lower term timeframes, let's also follow up on the 2-day timeframe CME signal or CME setup over here, of which it's still very much viable, as we just got that last closure, and in particular, that last closure did remain above the stochastic momentum pivot. So essentially, what is the setup? Low volatility plus the direction of the stochastic oscillator has equated to these stats over the last 5 years about. Low volatility is represented over here, stochastic oscillator represented over here. Hit rate 84.5%, average move almost 35. Standard deviation, first standard deviation, as you can see right there. This would, suggest that things can get even more crazy, I suppose. I do still want to remain a little bit more, on the humble side for this one, just because, it's not wise to be calling for like humongous moves when price action is still kind of hanging on to the current lows. But in this case, we see the same sort of 2-day time frame stochastic trend line coming in here, and also the stochastic oscillator will remain with upside pressure as long as Bitcoin's above 16,420 on a closing basis for the next period. So what does that essentially mean? It essentially means that as long as Bitcoin holds above 16.4, 16.5 region, direction is up. On the higher term time frames, 18,000, basically 18,000, 19,000, and 20,000 are kind of the major areas of interest. Yes, it's not those exact numbers as we looked at earlier, but kind of around there. That's where I'd be looking towards. One before the next, obviously. Now, going into the lower term timeframes, I wanted to use the HPDR indicator to kind of look at the lower term timeframe ranges. And as you can see, Bitcoin is trading above the 50% range highs right here. But here's the thing, this is coming on increasing volatility. So when we see something like that, it's likely to continue. And if it's likely to continue, then we could be looking at the next sort of range highs, which would be the 80% of historical range cyan level right here. I'll just mark it off quickly with there we go. And you can see that that is about 17,500, which does match up with one of our last little stutter steps that we saw before the last major move to the downside, major relatively speaking, I should say, which was in the middle of December, coming off of the $18,500 high right there. So ultimately, $17,500 is going to be a major area, for, at least for myself, because if Bitcoin starts to close above there, that's the point where I'd really be looking, towards 18,000 even. So one before the next, obviously. And on the other side, we do see that the current range low is about 16,750. So these have, kind of been more or less the same over the past, over the past 2 days here. But it is getting marched up now, which, again, is a somewhat good sign. I mean, albeit it's only $100 higher, but again, one before the next, and small baby steps here, obviously. What I also wanted to follow up on was the fact that all time frames basically seem to be in concert with each other, with showing incredibly low levels of volatility. Here's the weekly. You can see that it's kind of expanding off the lows as of right now. 5-day time frame is literally at the lows. I mean, this is like the lowest it can essentially get. It's 0 percentile right now. 2-day time frame on the lows as well. Daily coming off the lows. 12-hour coming off the lows. 6-hour coming off the lows. 4-hour a little bit higher, and hourly should be all the way up. So you can see how I should have done this the opposite way, but the lower term time frames lead into the higher term time frames. And so are we going to see this kind of spill on over into the daily, 2-day, 5-day, weekly? Very possible from here. So this kind of, another thing corroborating that story for these plays over here that we were looking at on the 2-day time frame, Jewel, and also this particular, this particular one over here, kind of playing into each other. And if we were to go look at stochastic momentum, we can go and start off with, I don't know, do we want to start off with the higher term time frames? Sure. The weekly time frame did close above the pivot, so weekly momentum remains to the upside as long as Bitcoin's above 16,630 on CME. That is. 5-day time frame is also going to be up above 16,500. Again, these numbers continue to pop up. 2-day time frame is showing upside on CME above 17,075. Daily is going to be vertical above 16,300. So it's got some room there, if you will. 12-hour time frame also up above 17,050. 6-hour time frame going to be showing across the upside if Bitcoin can close this next period above 17,170. 4-hour time frame will also be crossing the upside as long as Bitcoin remains above 16,750. And the hourly is flippy floppy, but still up in a really, really mature position as long as Bitcoin's above 17,040. So that will change around obviously on the next period in 21 minutes. But what does that account for? Maybe a little bit, maybe another try to the upside in the short term, probably a bit of sideways, and then very likely another try to the upside towards the next range highs. And then it's time to be looking at the higher term timeframes yet again and see, where the sort of pivots come in around. Anyways, other than that, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. A little bit longer on this one as well, as there's a lot of things to be covering up on. What else? Bybit, haven't talked about their promotion in a long time, but it's in the comment section there, so fair enough. You can figure it out. Yeah, I think it's a good place to be leaving off. As always, want to be wishing you the best in a more sincere tone. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.